Ohio State continues to stay hot on the recruiting trail with another commitment. Jordan Thomas, the number 176 player, and number 17 quarterback out of Bergen Catholic in New Jersey. Andrew, this is commitment number 13 and number 2 amongst the cornerbacks. What can you tell us about Jordan Thomas?
Yeah, this is a nice get for Ohio State. And I think for a while it was kind of presumed that Ohio State was in some kind of driver's seat,
Mm-hmm.
whether this was first, second, third. They were kind of at least in first, or at most in first, and in a lot of other places they were kind of, oh well, it's them in Notre Dame. Okay, well, it's them in Michigan. And the more you started to hear it, the more you started to go, well, if Ohio State's being named in every conversation, oh, it's an Ohio State Notre Dame battle, oh, it's an Ohio State Michigan battle, oh, it's an Ohio State whoever battle, you started to kind of hear Ohio State more and more. So this is a really nice get. And I think, Tim Walton should be really, really happy to get a kid like this into the class, because you mentioned it. It's a second corner in this class. And this is a unit that needs numbers. When you talk about where this cornerback room is going to be, Davison Igbinosun is not going to be around in 2026. You've got Jermaine Matthews, who's going to have a decision to make. You've got a couple other players who are kind of moving up or on to draft eligibility. So, yeah, I think adding Jordan Thomas, a top 200 kid who he just very, very smooth in the way that he plays the game. I think, there was a time where I thought he could have been a safety as well, just
Mm-hmm.
because he's got some of that positional flexibility. But, this is a kid from Bergen Catholic who plays at a high level of football, who I think is just solid is the word, where you just look at him and go, you know what? He is going to be a good football player for Ohio State. I think Ohio State fans should be pretty excited.
So let's project him out a little bit because you're talking about how there is going to be some turnover in the room after this season. But there's also a lot of young guys where we're still talking about turnover after 2025, but the turnover is guys who could be playing a lot of football this year with
Sure.
best case scenario, your starting trio next year outside is Jermaine Matthews, Aaron Scott, and Devin Sanchez with Davidson Igbenos, and we were going to the NFL after 2020. That's still a quality group.
Yeah.
So when you look at this group with Jordan Thomas and Jacob Weatherspoon, the other cornerback commit, are they guys you are expecting to, I don't know, compete for playing time in year 2? Or is this an example of, with this class, you just spent 2 years getting guys where by the latest year 2 they're on the field? So maybe you're getting together a class where, not to say that Jordan Thomas couldn't come in here and be and star from day one or
Mhm.
do whatever. Who knows? Because Jermaine, I mean, Denzel Burke was a guy rated around the same place
Yeah.
that Jordan Thomas was, and he started from day one. But we've also talked about why that is. Is this a situation where this 2026 recruiting class, when it comes to corner, you don't need to go get the guy who is a day one I can play for you? You don't need to go get the guy where
Mhm.
in year 2, even if he's not ready yet, it's okay. You can take the more developmental guy because you just spent 3 years in a row going and getting guys who were ready for you in day one if you needed to.
That's a good question, and I think probably a lot of people are curious about it. I think you probably need one of these guys, because
Mhm.
they're not done in cornerback recruiting. Maybe we can get into that at the end, but like they are still interested in other prospects. You don't want to have just two, because Davison Igbinosun, Lorenzo Styles, they're going to be gone soon. Jermaine Matthews, like we said, has a decision to make at the end of this year. I mean,
Mhm.
what if he balls out and people are saying he might be a late first round pick? He might go to the NFL at that point. So when these guys arrive on campus in 2025, Jermaine Matthews is going to be gone. It might not be when he might not be around when they're freshmen. Aaron Scott, we'll see with him. Devin Sanchez is going to be a second year player. Like, you're going to need some guys, I think, just to fill some depth roles, right? Like, you're going to
Mhm.
need a fourth and fifth corner. And I think year 1 you might even get there, but year 2 definitely. I think year 2, when you talk about this room and you talk about this group of guys, you need someone to step up, because I just listed a bunch of guys who are probably going to the NFL, and I don't think anybody would be surprised if they go to the NFL and they're not at Ohio State for longer than 3 seasons. So with that said, it's a numbers game, and I think that this gets you to a place where you feel really good about Jacob Weatherspoon, you feel really good about Jordan Thomas, And now you can start to map out a path to say, this guy can be our fifth corner year one, fourth corner year one, whatever. Second year, I think you're talking about some guys that can maybe start.
So you've got the 176 cornerback player, number 17 cornerback. And you've got the number 220 player, number 14. The 247 Sports has him listed as a safety, but Ohio State's recruited him to be a cornerback. What's next? You've got two. How many more do they want in this class? And who is maybe the number one guy they're looking at to be that next guy if there is another guy?
Yeah, Donovan Webb is the name that you hear a lot out of Frisco, Texas. He's a 4-star corner, and you start to think, okay, well, if you get him, are you done at 3? Do you want 4? Well, I think it depends on how the numbers shake out. Nasir McCoy is a kid out of Buford as well. So there's options there, and I think McCoy and Webb are kind of next on that to-do list. Obviously, I know Ohio State fans are curious, like Albert Hill, the 5-star corner from Akron, or 4-star corner from Akron. He goes to Hoban. He committed to USC. Victor Singleton from Central Catholic up in Toledo. He originally committed to Illinois. Now he's committed to Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
There was an in-state kind of contingent here that I'm sure some people are going, wait a minute. I thought we had some guys in-state. And I think Ohio State had those options. Victor Singleton and Albert Hill decide they want to play the college football elsewhere. They leave, one for Texas, one for California. And I think Ohio State's still okay. And I think Ohio State is still fine. And that is a credit to the way that Tim Walton has recruited this room. Because, I mean, you have a Devin Sanchez, you have a Jermaine Matthews, you have an Aaron Scott. A 5-star corner is going to be Ohio State's 4th corner in 2025, whether that's Aaron Scott or Devin Sanchez. That's a great credit to the room. So the depth has been building here. And that is one of the reasons why I think you're going to be okay, because you might not have that number 3 overall player, number 8 overall player, number whatever player that you look at and say, wow, that guy's the headliner of the defensive class. That guy's the headliner of this cornerback class. But you might just have 3 really good football players that you are supplementing, that you are bringing in. So, yeah, I think those 2 guys that I mentioned, McCoy and Webb, I think they're the next kind of frontier here. I think they're the next options. But if you land one of them at 3, I think you're feeling pretty good about where Ohio State's 2026 cornerback recruiting is.
I'm talking about headliners for the defense. I think the corners have been that for a while since Tim Walton's been here. I think it's the safety's turn to be that. And right now you've got Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell already in the class, one a 5-star, the other one a borderline top 100 recruit. And it seems like Braylon Womack, Ohio State's got a really good chance of landing him too. So it becomes a situation of, oh, your headline is not a corner. Well, it's because it's the safeties this time around. And so it's giving your roster balance of when you get to 2027, your second year 5-star safeties and your third year 5-star cornerbacks, that's your back end. I think that's still a pretty quality pairing in that situation if Tim Walton and Matt Guerrieri are recruiting at a high level like this.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. As much as it is interesting to talk about, this is a conversation similar to kind of how NFL teams have to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Where do we want to allocate our time? Where do we want to allocate our resources? Where do we want to allocate all of our everything, our time, our money, our conversations, everything? And I think right now, safety is where you could probably start to see maybe a little bit of okay, we need a shot in the arm here, because Caleb Downs is not going to be around in 2026. And you mentioned it, when you bring in elite football players like Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell, and then you're feeling pretty good about where you're at with Braylon Womack, a 5-star who's going to commit in August. He's from Mississippi. You start to go, okay, that is your shot in the arm, right? That is your, wow, we got maybe 2 5-stars and a top 100 kid out of this class, out of safety. And we went for 150, 160, 200 in corner at 3 of them. And you're able to blend that all together. So there's a million different ways to bake this cake if you're recruiting for Ohio State in the secondary. But especially if you land those 6, or those 5, and then one of the guys that I mentioned, McCoy or Webb, I think you're feeling really good about Ohio State's cornerback and safety recruiting. And frankly, when you put them all together in the defensive back room, you're going to have a whale of a recruiting class in 2026 if that is what it looks like. So I like the positional versatility. That is something that all of these guys on the recruiting trail have stressed with Guerreri, Walton. Every single one of them that I talked to has always said they want me to be versatile. They view me as versatile. They view me as having played a bunch of different spots. Take Fahim Delane, who's now on campus. Fahim Delane played outside corner, played slot corner, played safety in high school. Now he plays safety. Ohio State loves this mixing and matching. They love this moving guys around stuff. And I think that those 5, if you can land it, I think that would be a great class. And those 6, 3 safeties, 3 corners, man, that's a great room for Ohio State.
It's roster building 101
Yep.
at Ohio State. And as they continue to build their roster, number 3 class in the country in 2026 behind USC and Notre Dame, though it feels like Ohio State is number 3 and rising. Notre Dame's kind of number 2 and being Notre Dame, just kind of sitting, while USC is, I guess we'll have to see with USC, but Ohio State, the number 3 class in the country, getting their commitment, number 13, Jordan Thomas, and number 176 player, number 17, cornerback. Get the text, 614-350-3315. That's the first place we went with that information before we did literally anything else with it. It's a fun time. You should come join us, 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. That's Andrew Gillis. I'm Stephen Means. Ohio State on the board once again on the recruiting trail with Jordan Thomas. See ya.